All right, we're broadcasting.
All right, then go ahead.
Let's do it.
Let me know.
Yes.
We're okay?
We're good?
Okay. All right, I'd like to call the Wilton Board of Education April 28th regular meeting to order. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Thanks, Pam. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Ruth. All in favor? Aye. Okay. There are no people in the room for public comment. Do we have any raised hands, Lucille?
No, we do not.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. There are no reports, but can I make a report?
You're the board chair.
Okay. Can we add reports to the agenda?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Is there a motion?
I move to add reports to the agenda.
Just one?
Just one.
Just
We're
one.
adding report
Probably
to
the
the
one this
agenda.
morning?
No.
No.
All in favor? Okay. All right. And this will be short, just because I think it's appropriate. So I just have to read this little bit. Many people have read the articles about the passing of Nick Scioli, former Wilton High School teacher, coach, and athletic director. And I think it's appropriate to take a moment at the board table. Nick Scioli was at Wilton High School for 41 years. He helped lead the development of Wilton's competitive and comprehensive athletic program. He was already a legend at Wilton High School when I had the privilege of working with him. I knew him as a force of nature, assertive, loud, opinionated, and passionate about all things athletic. His focus was always what was best for student athletes. He was a leader not only at the high school, but he helped lead the way in establishing robust competition schedules and protocols at the state and FCAC level. I think our baseball coach, Tim Egan, said it best when he was quoted in the Wilton Bulletin about the messages he received after Nick's death. That kind of outpouring means you left your mark. If you can do that, no matter how big or small, it means you've done your job on earth, and Nick sure did. I agree with Tim. Nick Scioli has left an amazing legacy. So thank you for that. Okay, now we can move on to review and discuss. COVID update. Dr. Smith.
Great. Just briefly, as expected, we started the week with a fair number of COVID positive cases. So we had 30 positive cases on Monday, 12 cases on Tuesday, only 2 reported yesterday and 4 today. So hopefully the fall off in cases this week is the sign of a positive trend. So across the district, we're looking at 8 students at the high school, 10 at Middlebrook, another 8 at Cider Mill, 10 at Miller Driscoll, a couple of staff at Middlebrook, and 1 staff member at Miller Driscoll who are presently isolating because of COVID. So I continue to track COVID Act Now, as well as the local state database. Maria and I remain in close contact with Chrissy Macken, our medical advisor. We're maintaining, the procedures and protocols as we've laid out previously. Probably a week or so ago, COVID Act Now shifted their reporting to mirror the CDC's community monitoring guidance. So it's a different presentation than it had been up until 2 weeks ago. And so, I think what they write about the rationale is that the goal of the new framework is to help communities live safely with the coronavirus while also, as much as possible, returning to some version of normal life. And I think that's kind of been our goal here too. And so going forward, this week we made the decision to provide daily updates because we were coming out of the break. We'll assess where we are tomorrow, and if we see, kind of that, continuing trend of numbers falling, then we'll revert back to probably, weekly updating again. Looking just informational here at the Connecticut DPH's numbers for Wilton. It's a 2-week look back, so for the weeks of April 10th through the 23rd, the average case rate here in Wilton was 38.9. Looking at week over week, the number in that time span has declined from 57 to 43, so again, another indicator of a decline in numbers. That's all the news that's fit to print on COVID.
Okay. And in terms of COVID tests, you distributed,
We did.
and how did that go?
Well enough. So we
Okay.
distributed tests before the break. We invited people to take those tests before returning to school. So hopefully they did. I know they did in
Okay.
my house. And if people
And you
need
used up
tests,
a lot of them, then.
we have a healthy supply remaining. So
So,
if
okay.
people need tests, they just need to call. They can
And-
call the schools, they can call our office, and we're happy to provide them
Perfect. All right, great. Seems like it's going in the right direction.
for sure.
All right, so that leads us to our most recent crisis caused by the storm at our last board meeting. So at least it's clear skies tonight. So anyway, I don't mean to make light of it at all. It was quite an event. So do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so just a couple of things. First, as you saw, when we were here on the 7th, our facilities manager, Jose Figueroa, responded immediately. His team responded immediately. He and they worked through the night. They brought in an army of electricians. There was pretty substantial damage, as I think I wrote to all of you, at both Cider Mill and Middlebrook. So they've assessed those damages, working with Dawn Norton and Chris Burney. They've made a number of the repairs. The most significant repairs that have to be made now are to the rooftop units, these components called variable frequency drives. They're quite expensive, and they take a long time, once we order them, to get them here. So Mark Esposito, our HVAC technician, has our machines running, but we need these pieces to complete the repair. We're working with the insurance company to make sure that we're able to fully access all of our reimbursements. We're looking to place an order for these components very shortly, and then we expect it's going to take some months for them to be delivered, but we ought to be back to full operation sometime. Jose was estimating end of the summer. Hopefully that timeline will shorten, but he's not anticipating any issues between now and then, unless we have some other freak occurrence. So now on to the day. As you wrote, I wrote, both to the state legislature as well as to the Commissioner of Education, requesting a waiver for the day we used for remote learning. I learned today from Mike McKeon, who is the attorney at the State Department of Education, that we will be added to the agenda for the State Board of Education on June 1st. And so at that point, we'll have an opportunity to go, or I will, and plead our case with them, and hopefully they'll see the wisdom of our ways. So what I would say to all of you and to the community for planning purposes, as of right now, we will plan to have an additional makeup day for Cider Mill and Middlebrook School on June 22nd. We'll plan a half day for that. Hopefully the outcome on June 1st with the State Board of Ed is that they'll come around to our way of thinking. We won't have to use that extra day, but that remains to be seen.
Is there, 2 questions.
Andy?
Is there anything we can do to help strengthen our position in front of the State Board of Ed as a community, as a board,
Yeah.
between now and then?
They have all of the information. Let me speak first for what we've sent directly to the commissioner, who I'm presuming would share with the members of the State Board of Education. I believe they have all of the information they need. When I was in the conversation with Mike McKeon today, what it sounded like in terms of process, the commissioner will kind of gather her staff in the next week or so, and they'll look at the request, and then they'll make a recommendation. Then he's going to call me and kind of let me know, what their position is. And I think at that point,
Oh, what her recommendation would be?
yes, to
Oh,
the
okay.
state board. Yeah, because what I'm asking for is her support, of our request, because it's the state board that has the authority to make the decision. And so once I have an understanding from him about kind of what her thinking is, the commissioner, then I'll have an answer to that question.
Do you know what the lead time may or may not be?
I really don't.
Okay, I don't.
Like May 30th. Oh, guess what?
May 30th,
Yeah.
guess what? She's not supporting the recommendation, we need to plead our case, and
Yeah.
we could have had,
Well, I won't
phone
let
calls
it,
to the governor,
of
all
course.
those other types
Yeah,
of.
I won't let it sit.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
if I don't, we'll give him a week, and if I don't hear back at that point, I'll call. And,
Okay.
Is there a
we won't let it
precedent
go.
anywhere in the state that this has happened before that we can cite?
There's not. I mean, there were, under the executive orders, I believe the Winchester School District had a substantial issue with COVID transmission in the community that shut down their schools for, I don't know if it was a day or a few days. And under the executive order, they were able to get a waiver. That's the only one I'm aware of. And when I had an initial conversation, I think it was with Mike, that executive order has expired, and so there's no pathway there. I think, to the contrary, every other request that I'm aware of has been denied.
Are there non-COVID related precedents? Like, have there ever been things that have happened where school buildings are not functioning or functioning properly, and so alternative arrangements have been made that are not ideal, but sufficient to do the job for the day, that we could say, I can appreciate that we all know that remote learning is not as ideal as being in the classroom, but still sufficient for the day, just like there was a fire in this building and all the kids met in the town hall, or, something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a complete view of the landscape. In a conversation I had with Fran Rabinowitz, who is the executive director of the Connecticut Superintendents Association, she was under the impression that we were the only district so far that actually opted to use remote learning and then go ask for a day. In some other cases, she may have cited Greenwich, maybe Bridgeport, where there were some issues, maybe building issues, where they asked first and then were denied. And so, the outcome was the same. They were required to tack a day onto the end of the year, but there's not, of the few experiences I'm aware of. I'm reminded, you may remember several years ago, we had all of those snow days. And so, I think we had, 10 or 11 here, I don't remember exactly. Ridgefield had a whole bunch. And so it was either Ridgefield or Danbury. I think Danbury had actually, they didn't hit their 180-day requirement by June 30th. And so they were required to add a day the following year.
Okay. Which would still be, in my mind, better than
Yes.
June 22nd.
Well, it's if you read the letter I sent to the
Yes.
commission, that was my fallback position. It's annoying
really
because
a day.
it's
Yeah.
not, it's not answering the question about remote learning, which I think is the issue we have to push with the state board. But for us, there is that precedent, and it would work for us.
Right.
Because we already have 181 days built in the calendar, and
See, all they require, right, is 180.
Yeah.
So if we say, okay, our 180th day this year is going to be
Yeah, our 100th.
our 181th day
Next year, which we already have planned
'Cause we
for
don't need
and
it.
budgeted
Yeah,
and
right.
et
Yeah, yeah.
cetera.
right.
Okay. Yeah. I think
Because
that.
no one's going to come,
Yeah,
right?
and I think
Right?
my thought a little bit was not necessarily when somebody used remote learning or asked to use remote learning, but like another learning type situation that, was not,
Was different.
was
enough.
different.
Yeah.
Was like different enough, but,
Yeah, I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
my impression is that State Department of Education has been very stringent about
Yeah.
180 in-person days.
yeah, okay. And then, can we just let, the Cider Mill and Middlebrook families know
I will,
that
yeah,
there will be this
plan for this day.
plan for this day? We're hoping it doesn't go there, but,
Yeah, we'll send
Plan
it,
for
we can
this
send a
day.
note out tomorrow. I wanted to speak to you first, and then we'll let everybody else know.
Well, if we have to do it this year and incur teacher salary, extra days, is there any way of bringing, I guess I'm thinking of some of Jen's questions, fewer teachers in and have larger groups? Like, what if you had a presentation of an artist or a speaker or a,
Like a workshop type
Workshop
day
kind of
or something
day.
like that, so you
Yeah.
don't need
you know,
as
some
many
of the
ratio
assembly,
as
yeah,
what's-
the assembly kind of
Mhm.
idea, and then you would need enough teachers to supervise, but you wouldn't necessarily need everyone
Sure.
there.
I'll have to, let me think about that because we haven't had a chance
I
to
don't want to start
get
getting
to
too much
that
into the
point.
details, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll go.
It's not a bad idea, though.
I'll kick it around with our administrators and just see, because
Yeah, because the
there's
teachers
all
are already
kinds of-
fully paid for this year.
They are, and so if they didn't have to
Right.
come that 182nd day, that's
You
correct.
still, I mean, they still
Yes.
had all their contracts.
That's right.
And so they would get, whoever shows up needs the extra, I
That's
get
correct.
it.
We pay for that
extra
extra.
But I'm
additional,
just saying,
yeah.
well, maybe we cut down the number of
It's an
people that
interesting
might be
idea.
necessary.
I mean, because if there are potential for a lot of staff to already have plans too, or for their children to already be out of school, or for it to be complicated for them to have to come.
Yet another reason why adding days at the end of the year is just a bad idea.
Or just letting the remote learning count.
Yeah, so give me some time to just,
Yeah.
explore that with our
Yeah.
team here, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Yeah, well, I mean, to Ruth's questions, and Jen sent you some, and we all know the issue. I think I said it this morning, I understand rules, and I am probably the biggest rule follower on the planet, but when it comes to completely
Stupid rules?
nonsensical rules, it flies in the face of common sense. And I can't believe that anyone needs to stick by it to the point where, to me, it would look embarrassing to be that illogical and that
It's the
unresponsive.
old expression, the perfect getting in the way of the good. Like they want this it to be that you're always in the classroom, so anything that deviates from that, except for this
Yeah.
one-time COVID emergency, but it's.
Well, it just seems we tooled up for this. It's a tool now, and now to say you cannot use that is, I don't get
It's
it.
crazy. And also, we're going to experience harder weather, more severe weather, so this is.
We're always going to have
probably-
snow days, right?
That's going to be part of our lives that's not going to go away.
Right.
So they should think about, exemptions for certain things that happen to a building where it's not safe to have children in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be a consideration or an exemption.
As we've been talking about, there are worthy questions that deserve good, reasonable answers.
And I know the superintendent needs to be tactful, but we can be less. We can just call it a little
Yeah,
on the
so,
nonsensical
when
side.
on June 1st, with or without the commissioners, whatever, with or without the commissioner's support, is it you making the case? Is it who's making the
Well,
case?
that's a good. I think
Or
we
they
can. I
have
think
all
we
the
have some.
materials, or.
Yeah.
I think good question. We'd have to decide that.
Okay. So that could be another, depending on how the.
Bring 800 cider mill children to the state
Well, at least
board
their
Mm-hmm.
meeting.
parents.
Or their parents.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, okay.
So, and we brought it up in the business ops meeting this morning, if there's letters from,
Sure.
as the Board of Finance, this is a crazy burden on taxpayers for a not very worthwhile use of time.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I think it's appropriate to let's give the folks at the State Department of Ed a little bit of time to
sure.
finish their
Yes.
considerations,
No, I get
and
it.
then
I
we'll
get it. That's
we'll
fine.
respond.
Does our attorney present this, or do you present this?
I would certainly consult with our attorney about how best to do it. I have to go and I'm not sure where it is on the agenda, and need to probably watch a couple of State Board of Ed meetings, and then we'll just it'll be another learning experience.
A fun one.
Yes.
So aside from if we have to go to June 22nd, is the district out for any other financial costs? Do we have to, if insurance is paying for the repairs that need doing to the thing that you, on the
Yeah,
roof.
so I mean, I think that was
annual.
one of the questions that Dawn was pursuing with the insurance company was, would the costs of paying for the extra day be factored into the insurance claim? We don't have an answer to that question yet, but we've asked it. Other than the salary, I mean, I don't believe so. I mean, the lights are going to be on, the air conditioning is going to be on.
Buses.
Staff in some version will be present. The buses will be running, but they didn't run on the remote learning day.
Oh, okay, so it's a swap.
In terms of who's doing the work, is that covered by insurance or the overtime by the custodians that's been incurred already?
Oh, the damage.
So, I mean, we have,
Yeah.
we have tallied all of that, and we're going to present it for reimbursement. I don't think we have clarity yet from the insurance company about what is and is not reimbursable.
But it's significant amount
It's
of
quite
money.
Oh, sure it is.
extensive, the damage. I was surprised when you talked about it this morning.
Yeah, I mean, we're
had no
looking-
idea it was that extensive.
Between the repairs and the overtime and the fees for additional electrician help, we're looking at north of $200,000.
Jose went even higher.
Yeah, I mean, he was
Is it
estimating.
just every
Yeah.
day? And apparently, Jose was saying this morning at our business ops meeting that sometimes you don't know everything, or weekend stuff, and then
Yeah.
it goes like a couple of weeks later, and then you go.
And just taxing the rest of the system because it's working a little different until the new parts come in.
Right.
Yeah.
All good questions.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like we have a small insurance deductible,
We do.
so that
Yeah,
part's good.
we do.
That helps.
But it was, and also maybe at some point next year, or whenever you think it's best, the idea of a backup generator.
Mhm. Yes, we will begin those conversations probably this summer, as we're looking at facilities and facilities upgrades and starting to do those plans. I mean, as you know, we were looking at the potential of using bonding several years ago for those, and then when Chris Burney did the analysis, he just came back to a recommendation that maybe, it's actually, they're not worth the expenditure because they're so infrequently used. But I think this most recent experience ought to enable us to revisit that question, and maybe we have a different answer as a result.
Okay.
They're quite expensive.
Yeah.
For a building the size of what we would need.
So, any other comments on the follow-up? So we'll kind of wait to see, and then, then we have to find out some other ways of either
Yes.
making our voices known, or protesting, or taking it to another audience than the State Board of Ed if we have to.
My cider mill kid is looking for a project, so she's into PowerPoints lately, so I'm sure
Okay.
she'd love to put something together.
Terrific.
All right, any other comments or whatever on that?
Welcome.
Jen, I know you missed our discussion, but I tried to get some of the questions that you had asked in there a little bit, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the budget update.
Great, so you have, I sent it to you earlier today, you have it at your seats, just a draft of the proposed reductions. So a couple of changes you'll note here. In looking at this, so we wanted to capture, from the original Board of Ed adopted budget to the budget that was approved by the Board of Finance with the reductions. We needed to capture the full universe of those reductions, and we had talked about them, but didn't really capture them. And so I just readjusted the list here, so pardon the repetition, but just for the record. So as you know, because of the approval of the use of bonding for the renovations at Middlebrook and the high school, we were able to reduce the requested amount by $205,002. And then with the Board of Finance's reduction and commitment to use the charter authority for the elevator replacement here at the high school, that was another reduction of $203,200. So when thinking about the operating capital reduction, that total was $408,202, excuse me. And that leaves the remaining $485 to reduce our budget to the appropriation approved by the Board of Finance. And so then working down the list, some of these were easier to achieve than others. And so, as you know, we have a couple of administrative replacement positions, and so we're anticipating, at least, $15,000 or so in savings just from the change in personnel, because we'll be hiring a little less expensive than we currently have. We took some savings from a new contract with a website vendor, so that was $10,000. We had a retirement here with a paraprofessional in the high school media center, so we reduced that position by 0.5, and that realized $30,000 in savings for the next budget. And then we started to make some additional FTE reductions in other places. And so I went back to Dr. O'Donnell at the high school, and we further reduced staffing there by 0.2. And so we'll have a reduction in 0.1 in science and then 0.1 in art. And so the result of that reduction will save $20,000 and will slightly increase class sizes in forensics and then a couple of art classes. And when we looked at the ratio, I think we went from like 19 to 21 or 20 to 23 or something like that. So it wasn't overwhelming. And given when Bob and I worked through the different potential reductions, this is really the best and only place to go. Other reductions would be, doing things like reducing, a class from 2 sections to 1, which would essentially double the enrollment. And so we didn't want to do anything like that. And then also tracking the enrollment decline and looking at the number of necessary sections in art at Middlebrook, we're proposing to take a 0.4 reduction in art, so that will yield about $40,000. The result there is some increased class sizes in the 6th grade art classes, and I think we were pushing to maybe 22 or 23. So again, not extraordinary from what we typically run.
And that's the smallest team, is 6th grade?
6th grade is the smallest team. Yeah, I think 8th grade will be the
Or
largest. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the grade, okay.
In technology, so we revised the technology hardware line, and so we're going to we reduced $10,000 there, and the impact of that is we're going to reduce the number of replacement Chromebooks. So we'll still have enough for each kid that is moving through the system. We'll just have fewer replacement Chromebooks that we often use for repair or temporary loans when kids have to have their Chromebooks repaired. We are reducing the transportation line by $10,000. It's not entirely clear yet exactly how those reductions will be achieved, but as we're just kind of studying that line and looking at our different transportation options, we felt pretty comfortable that we could realize that level of savings there with some impact, but likely minimal impact. And so, it may be a deferred field trip, a deferred JV game or something like that. So it's it's going to take a little time to nail that down exactly. But again, the consensus was we could take money from that line. I think we spoke briefly the last time about the SPED contract services line. Here, Andrea is proposing to reduce one of the contracts that we use for consultant time. That's with the Connecticut Center for Exceptional Children, I believe, and we use some of their consultants to provide functional behavioral assessments. So we're going to be reducing that contract. In an email Andrea sent to me today, she also noted that we are training one of our psychologists to be able to provide neuropsych assessments in-house. Those are assessments that we've done we've contracted out in the past, and so that also ought to impact that line a little bit and achieve that $70,000 savings. And then some of the more substantial reductions here. We had proposed to add a 0.8 social worker, estimating about $100,000. What I'm proposing is that we reduce the 0.8 to a 0.5 and then move it to the ARP ESSER 3 grant for next year. And we just have to understand that that is a 1 year. We've got 1 year left in that grant. And so we'll have to make a decision at the end of the year next year about what we do with that. Do we let it go, or do we fold it into the operating budget?
And the ESSER money that we're now going to use for that would have been used for additional social workers as
It
well?
was, yeah. We were hoping to contract with Children and Families Aid, and we were hoping to use them because they pay less, so we could get more social work time for less. They haven't been able to fill those positions, so we're not going forward with that contract. So we'll hire somebody on our own. I just read yesterday, and it's too soon to really understand whether or not it'll positively impact this need, but both the House and Senate passed a range of bills supporting child mental health. Mm-hmm. And so, we'll know in another week exactly, what those services are. And my hope is that, whether, funds come directly to schools or they come to community-based service organizations, some way we'll be able to get some additional mental health support, whether it's social work or other. Yeah. So we'll just have to pay close attention to those bills, and then, what they mean in terms of direct impact here in the community. We had a proposal to add a sped paraprofessional that was $60,000, and so we're just deferring that hire. And so, one of Andrea's charges is, to again just reorganize the paraprofessional support to make sure that our students with IEPs are covered. And then the math specialist we were proposing at Middlebrook, we're also proposing to defer that position. And so the impact there is, essentially that we will maintain the current level of intervention services. We've kind of gone around and around about this with the administrators, and there is consensus among the administrator team that, we will, for another year, live with what we have. And so that's my proposal to you tonight. Chuck has informed me again that, the students that are receiving, that need intervention, that are eligible for intervention services are receiving them. What this position would have done is given us greater flexibility. It would have been able to expand our pool of kids that we're being able to see. So we have to defer on that one. I think the little bit of, hope that I would hold out and offer to all of you is we're in the time of year now where we'll get the unanticipated resignations and retirements. And so that may, create some opportunities that aren't currently present. And so we're just continuing to watch that. And so, as these things happen, we may have an opportunity to feed some time either to, a social work position or, even perhaps some part of a math position. So we'll just have to wait and see if any new opportunities emerge.
And did you guys look at professional development at all?
Oh, we looked at everything.
Instead of
yeah.
having a math interventionist instead of having so much professional development time?
We did. I mean, we looked at all of the lines again, and I think the consensus is, we have either reduced or maintained some of those lines, and in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, the way that, what we're proposing in the budget is going to best meet our needs for next year. So all in, that brings us to a total reduction of $893,202, which meets the adjusted appropriation. So I'm asking you to hold your nose and make a motion to approve it, and trust that the administration of this district has been here before, and we have made it work, and we will make it work again.
Can we approve it minus one part of it? If we have an early retirement and we could fund part of a math specialist, could we then consider pulling something out of professional development time? I'm only going after professional development because we have, right, we already know we have great teachers. We also have IELTS, we also have coaches. We already offer professional development above and beyond what we're actually required to offer them. So just trying to think of
Yeah.
if we could maybe consider that.
Yeah,
Agree.
okay, listen, I'm not closed off to the idea, and I think what gets challenging today is, you know, like, we're gonna cut $1,000 from this, $2,000 from that. It's just, you know, these little pieces don't get us there, and, you know, and then, you know, when we're talking about the goals around supporting the capacity development of our staff, you know, and I think, you know, I think we're pretty conscientious about how we support them, and I think we do a great job of supporting our staff. You know, we do that very well. What I would say to you is, if we see some opportunities emerge and we get maybe close to, I don't know, part of a critical mass, I think, and the opportunity is there, then I think maybe, you know, we could revisit that conversation. But at this point, I don't see how that would happen.
I mean, if we even did like a 0.5, because then you wouldn't have to offer benefits.
Right.
Right, at least it's still something in case widens our pool. I know I keep harping on this. I know middle school has their needs there. We all have needs, but we've also been talking about math this entire time.
Yeah.
About as one of our kind of board goals, and I think that's why I'm having a hard time with.
Yeah, and I don't argue with you, Jen. I really, you know, this is not great. I think
we're getting survival funding. So you know, we talk about making it work, but like, there's
Yeah.
making it work and kind of making it work well, or the way we expect it to, or the way we hope and want it to. And so I think that's kind of how I sit here, just so uncomfortable. Because it's just, at some point, you're no longer, you're kind of just floating along, and all of a sudden it's like your life raft is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you know, it just,
Sure.
yeah.
I think here's, you know, the other piece I would just offer as we're kind of thinking about this. You know, our students at Middlebrook are engaged in map testing this week. I think there is confidence among our staff that we're going to see good results in the spring, because they've been working really, really hard this year. And so in just thinking about the resources that we currently have, we may find ourselves in a situation where we have fewer kids in need of intervention. And so we might have an opportunity there too to deploy differently or to extend in a different way our existing interventionists.
Right.
And so I'm mindful of that as well. And so, you know, so I think that also I am comfortable deferring this for now, you know, for those reasons. And then again, just knowing that opportunities may emerge.
Yeah, and when you talk about opportunities, maybe if a person is not affordable at the beginning of the year,
Right.
as the year progresses,
Right.
Things change.
you know, for some reason, we don't need as much of, I don't know, electricity. I mean, I'm just making that up, but.
Rates went up, yes.
Yeah, no. Well,
Bad guess.
all right, never mind that. But, you know, if there is some pot that doesn't look like we need all of,
Right.
we're running under in any accounts, then maybe, and as the year progresses, sometimes the needs of kids get more severe, so maybe there's a later in the year
Right.
potential.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that. And I think, you know, here too, you know, we have named and have affirmed that improving math instruction, providing math support is a top priority. And so, as you know, time marches on in the short term here, to the extent that an opportunity exists, the commitment is to feed the support in that direction. You know, and I would say we'll hold that against the mental health needs as well. You know, and so we'll weigh those out.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to not like, but approve?
I so move.
These unfortunate, okay, thank you,
I'll second.
thanks.
Sadly.
Mhm. All, again, in favor is not quite the right term, but for a motion it is, so all in favor? Sort of unenthusiastic.
Yes.
But, yeah, it's unfortunate. But we'll move on, and, thanks for your review, and thanks to the administrators for, figuring out, okay, we will make it work. So thanks for that. Okay, you see some dates for future meetings. One of them, of course, is the annual town meeting on May 3rd, followed by the budget vote, so encourage everyone to attend and vote. Lucille, are there any comments from the public?
No.
Okay. All right, then this meeting is adjourned, so thank you, everyone. And thank you. It's like the silent,
Right.
silent group there.
Great. So